2021 at 6:30 in the evening. Glad to see everybody here, and thank you everybody for wearing masks. Please let the record show that council is all here. And you, council members, you have minutes from our July 27th meeting in front of you, and do they meet with your approval?
I make a motion to accept.
A motion,
Second?
second by Martin Willis. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. We have a special presentation here. Chief Mason, to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here today to recognize some outstanding people that took heroic actions that saved lives. On June 28th of this year, hundreds of people came to the Willamette River in Independence to try to escape the high temperatures. A couple of young adults were wading out on the south gravel bar when they stepped off the bar and into the deep water between the bar and the shore. Neither of them could swim. As the two struggled in the water, many people called 911. Some tried to make a human chain to get out to the struggling people, but 3 people really stepped up and put their own lives in danger and swam out and did rescues. Today, I think we only have one of those 3 with us, and at this time, I'd like to ask Maiko Montgomery to come forward. Maiko kept one of the struggling swimmers above water before finally pulling her onto a floating raft. The other 2 that I don't believe are able to join us today are Teresa Lowry and Jamie Brown.
Chief, behind you.
Oh, Jamie, you are? I'm sorry. Perfect. Jamie Brown. And Jamie and Teresa worked together to keep the other struggling swimmer above water while someone from shore retrieved a life ring, and they used that to bring him to safety. I was on scene shortly after this happened, and I will tell you that the actions of these heroes clearly saved lives. And I would like to present each of them with a challenge coin from the police department. We just recently got these, and we hadn't really decided what the criteria was going to be to give these out yet, but I was sure this did meet it, and I'm happy to do this today. So, Maiko, this is a challenge coin from the police department for your willingness to step up and make a difference and improve our community. Thank you very much. The same. Thank you very much. And Chief Olson from the Fire District would also like to present some life-saving awards at this time. Chief Olson.
On behalf of Polk County Fire District Number 1, your actions, we're grateful for your actions, and we also would like to present you with the Polk County Fire District Number 1 Life-Saving Award.
So before you go away, I'm a retired lifeguard, used to teach water safety instructor. I used to teach lifeguards. And so I really appreciate people who step up, who do the right thing to help people and to make a difference. And on behalf of the citizens of Independence, myself, the moms and dads, all the people involved, thank you for making a difference. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause.
We came back to the river a couple of weeks later, and we noticed that there was now life vests up there. And I want to thank you for that, because even going back there, I've seen so many kids there myself that weren't wearing life vests prior, but now they are. And so I wanted to say thank you for putting that up there.
You're welcome. It takes a whole community. Thank you so much. Appreciate you taking the time to come in. I don't think we have any other public comment at this point. So we're going to move direct. It's okay to take off, you know. We see you at parallel 45. We have a special presentation that's coming up right now from the Deaf Blind Interpretive Institute, and I'd like to welcome them to the podium. And welcome to the Independence City Council.
It doesn't accommodate for shorter people very well.
You're good.
Sorry, I'm just going to adjust it.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members and mayor. My name is C.M. Hall, and I am here on behalf of the Deafblind Interpreting National Training and Resource Center. I also happen to be a Newport, Oregon City Councilor, so I thank you for letting us come visit you tonight. I want to first acknowledge the other co-director of the Deafblind Interpreting National Training and Resource Center is seated in the audience. Her name is Heather Holmes. And we are here with our lead consultant, who is internationally known and has a stellar reputation as a trainer, as an educator, as a linguistic consultant. And she just so happened to move to our community 4 years ago from the hub of Seattle, Washington, where there's a large deafblind community. If you don't know any other deafblind people, really the best person to meet for your first time is Yalitza Nuccio. I want to give her an opportunity to introduce herself, and we'll continue to share remarks with you.
Hello. Thank you for the introduction, CM, and thank you all again for that warm welcome and letting us be here today. So I have an interpreter with me. My name is Yalitza Nuccio, and CM said I relocated 4 years ago. It was actually 3 years ago, but I'm thrilled to relocate to the area. I have a business here, Tactile Communications, in the community, and it's just been such a welcoming town for a lot of the deafblind people, members of the community, trainers and teachers who have come to the area. So the Deafblind Interpreting Institute started, it's a nationally recognized program. And it was recognized actually because it's the first and only immersion program where deaf-blind people are taking the lead and training those who are coming in to be trained, those participants coming in to learn, the students. And so this community has not only allowed that program to flourish, but it's also allowed, as I said, my business to come and flourish, which has brought deafblind people from all over the world, people from France, people from Europe, people from all corners of the globe, to learn about the protactile movement and protactile interpreters. There have been coverage of this in the local media, in the Independence paper, in the Newport paper, as well as in some national Christian Science Monitor, for example. They've been here and videoed and had a nice segment on what's going on with the training and just the programs that are being offered here for protactile interpreter training and deafblind. The deafblind community, actually, members of the protactile deafblind community like John Lee Clark, who is an internationally renowned writer and poet and instructor in our program. And so all of us deafblind folks, trainers, are coming from all over. We've got now, soon, hopefully, people descending upon the area, including a reporter from the New Yorker who's going to be writing a piece on the training program that is indeed one of a kind. So DBI, Deafblind Interpreting Institute, DBII, will be training 75 interpreters, half of whom are deaf, half of whom are hearing, but we're all connected in protactile space and all learning from leaders in the deafblind community. And so these are people not necessarily from the state of Oregon. In fact, very few from Oregon in this cohort. In fact, it will be people from all over the United States. I'm sending this.
Little help, Karen? You're Tom, can yours reach? Here we go. good now.
All right, fantastic. Thanks for your patience there with that. So where did I stop? Oh, with the number 75. 75 interpreters will be trained, again, half of whom are deaf, half of whom are hearing. And so you're going to see us around the community, not just with this next cohort who's going to be coming, but also just the deafblind people who are, myself included, community members. And so I think that it's a benefit for the community economically. It's also a boon culturally, right? Because it does add that cultural piece where people can learn about what it's like, to be deafblind. And we can learn about others as well, and deafblind people from other communities coming in, and what are those communities like. So again, respect to my company because it is local. It's run and owned by me, a deafblind person, and we really do foster community support and community camaraderie.
CM speaking here. I just wanted to add, I'll voice. I just wanted to add that these are programs, this is a federally funded grant through the Rehabilitation Services Administration, and it is awarded to Western Oregon University. And it's a 5-year grant, and we've been training interpreters across the country for the last 5 years, and we're hoping to be funded again. We'll find out in a month. But we have been connected to Western, where there's a strong interpreting program and also American Sign Language Studies program. And I do want to recognize another member of our audience, Dr. Kara Guarneras, who's an ASL Studies professor. And so we have this hub in this community, and we're actually kind of expanding more into Independence. These interpreters coming will be staying at the Independence Hotel. We will be training in the Independence Event Center in this building. So you will see more of us. We will be in the community more. So we wanted to make sure you knew about us and also just knew that we have this really great cultural icon and resource in our community. And so I wanted to just make sure that that was something you were aware of and that business leaders knew about as well in our community. Yalitza, do you have anything else you want to add?
I do, yeah. And so for members of the community who aren't deafblind, when you encounter a deafblind person, it's nothing to be afraid of. I wouldn't want you to be afraid of just going ahead and coming up and touching us, touching our hand, because touch is our world. You can go ahead and print your name, right, doing print on the palm, and that's the way that we can access one another. So feel free to get in touch with us. Don't be afraid, but it's the spirit, the small community spirit that I love that was the impetus for me to relocate here. And I want to thank both Kara and Heather for coming and supporting us. And as CM said, not only, she was really nice to mention me being an icon, but there are many, many icons coming into the community. Right now, I actually have a deafblind teacher from Texas who's staying locally and a deafblind student from the state of Washington. So we just want to continue to have this place be as welcoming as possible for deafblind citizens and visitors.
Thank you for listening to us. If you have any questions, Yalitza would happily answer, as would I.
Well, on behalf of the council and the City of Independence, thank you for taking the time to share this with us. This was interesting, it was informative, and I think that our community will now know more. And thank you for demystifying this and making it okay to reach out and connect. Thank you so much for being here today and taking the time to share with us. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you. You all do the same.
You're welcome. We're going to continue moving forward.
And I'd love to shake your hand, actually, before leaving.
Sure. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to move on to different reports, just to keep you informed of a few things. Last time before, on our last meeting, I mentioned that I'd be attending the Oregon Mayors Association, and that was a great gathering of some 80 mayors from around the state. I was one of the presenters and also served as a panelist on some training education. The Oregon Community Foundation recently had their first in-person meeting in over 18 months, and they had it here in the event center in Independence, and many of them stayed over in the hotel. I was honored to have been asked to speak to frankly, it's a pretty impressive board of statewide leaders on many levels. And I had the chance to share a little bit about Independence. They were very impressed with our community, and we're going, wow, I wish other communities could do the same things that you folks are doing here. Also had an opportunity to share with them that as going forward, how important it is to make sure that rural is part of the conversation that needs to happen across our state to bring folks together and to success for everybody. So it was really great. Had the opportunity to participate in National Night Out. That was wonderful. Both police departments, the fire district, and so many other folks were involved. It was great. I didn't get soggy this year, which was appreciative, and I think had a chance to did our radio interview on KRKT about Independence, and it was really a good chance, and they love Independence. Attended the LOC regional meeting recently in Mount Angel. There were 40 people from around the Mid-Willamette Valley and talking about the issues. And today, I want to give a little bit more detailed report. I was part of a group of folks that met with the Cheryl Nestor Wolf, who's the president and CEO of Salem Health. And there was a whole presentation discussion about COVID and what's going on in the healthcare system, and I wanted to share some of the things that she shared with us today. The COVID cases in Salem are rising. There are 101 as of this morning cases in the hospital. They're looking for a peak. The earliest would be September 6th, possibly about a week later is when it should peak, and then they're hoping it'll flatten out. That's what they, working with OHA, that they're looking, that's the modeling. But by the time they get there, they expect statewide to be short 400 to 500 beds statewide. Short 400 to 500 beds. And they said most cases in the hospital, it's unvaccinated folks. So in Salem right now, they have one traditional ICU bed available as of this morning. They're using other spaces, conference rooms, physical therapy spaces. They're putting all to work. She said emphatically the hospital is full and they're holding people in the ER. Also that the supervisory and leadership staff are now involved in direct patient care, and the only meetings that they now have are COVID related. And so they are also bringing in retired doctors and nurses and putting them to work. And that I tell you all these things just to let you know that's where things are. And I think I sent out this afternoon, I had Karen send out the governor's order for masks in all situations in public, indoor and outdoor, vaccinated or unvaccinated. They also asked that, and I offer this to people who are listening, for the last 18 months, healthcare workers have been working under extreme stress. Very, very stressful in lots of different ways. Healthcare has already been stressful, but it's even more. So they've asked that if you know people, reach out and say thank you. It's a small thing, but it can help. So I just want you to know that that's the word we got from Salem Health at noon today. And so
Mayor, if I could just piggyback on that
Please.
comment you made. People seem to think that the addition of the 1,500 National Guards members to help in this crisis is new blood, essentially, but these are people who already work in the healthcare profession. They're already tired, but they're doing more, so that's a good thing.
appreciate that. And I know that since you work with the Oregon Health Authority, you have a closer look than you sometimes may wish to go look at them. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that information along. I'm going to go on to council liaison reports. Councilor Takis, would you like to talk about MyNet, please?
Yeah, so I think at the last time I gave a report, we talked about Don Patton, the general manager, was retiring. He's going to be retiring at the end of September. And the board appointed P.J. Armstrong as a co-manager while Don's here, and then he will carry on as an interim manager while we look at who we're possibly going to be replacing Don with. And the other thing that's going on with MyNet that is of interest is COVID is causing problems with their supply chain, which is really making them rethink the way they manage their inventory. You know, what they used to be able to order in a few days is now taking a few months. So hopefully that won't have any major impact, but it is something that they're going to have to be dealing with here in the near future. So.
Paul, what's the process for identifying a new general manager?
We're looking. We were looking. I don't know how far we got into it. Getting a headhunter, somebody who does that sort of thing.
Search committee. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have a service do that.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Joe, Parks and Recreation?
We are going to be meeting next month. We skipped our meeting this month.
Okay, that's reasonable. Councillor Martin Willis, anything on the Planning Commission, please?
Planning Commission, much of their discussions we've seen here. They've had some discussions surrounding housing needs. Last month, they did a tour of the Henry Hill neighborhood. Fred took them. I was unfortunately just coming back from the oral surgeon and was unable to attend the tour. So I'm anxious to hear about that from Mr. Evander. And there's been just a lot of discussion surrounding mixed-use housing and where in town that's appropriate. And they voted their support of our transportation system plan.
Great.
And that's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Bessemer, I think it's to you with the city manager report. I didn't forget you.
I wasn't panicking because I really don't have a lot for tonight. Reconfigure this a little bit here. So just a couple really simple things. First off, wanted to acknowledge that the library did a great job as usual on the summer reading program. The library had 336 people sign up and participate this year, included 24 babies, 151 children, 48 teens, and 131 adults. There were a number of local businesses that helped put together some prizes as an incentive for people to participate. I just want to thank them publicly. So they included the Naughty Noodle, the Brew, Ovenbird Bakery, K. Bates Jewelry, Jubilee Bakery, San Antonio's Lonnie's Lunch Wagon, the Independence Ice Cream Store, and the Independence Cinemas. So the kids alone accounted for about 282 different entries, and they included over 700 of reading hours this summer. So another successful year, even though things were a little different, but it's good to hear that. I just, as Mayor mentioned, wanted to mention that obviously we're aware of the mask requirements for outdoors that are coming up, and we are working with the Community Fiesta and any other events that are going on. We had a block party that is planned for Sunday, and we're still trying to figure out whether or not we're going to do that, but we'll give more information tomorrow as we find out more. Also, Saturday markets, we'll be communicating with them, just making sure that everything is set up to go for that. So with that, if you have any questions for me or staff?
I did have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So with the mask mandate, what are you guys going to be doing for like enforcing it in Independence? So if you see people congregating outside not wearing a mask, so is it like a fine or how do you enforce the mandate?
Yeah, we'll obviously look into that, and I can have the chief respond more if we want. But typically, we're not the responsible party for enforcing those kind of mandates. So it would probably be some sort of state agency that was dealing with that rather than our police department. We don't have the resources to be going around and doing a lot of that work. So obviously, if it's an egregious case, we'll certainly take a look at it. But for the most part, that's really not a local responsibility. So,
Thank you.
If I could add something that I forgot in my report, and I think we had a chance to talk, I wanted to just call out the library. During our heat adventure recently, they juggled some schedules, they stayed late, they did other things, and they provided a place for some folks that didn't have a place to be cool when it was hot. They had a place, and so both of us, glad we remembered it, but really wanted to call out the library and their staff for being able to do that.
Well, thanks. That happened while I was gone, so thanks to Gloria and others who kind of organized that. I think we're learning that we've had warming shelters for a long time. Cooling shelters are a little bit easier to actually stand up and put together, so we'll be looking for next summer to kind of have some more organized plans, make sure that our staff is aware of what facility we're going to open up and just how we manage that, so we can have some longer hours to deal with that. So,
There are no questions for the manager. You're on the next one. Do you want to make some comments related to the transportation system plan? Because I think there was some additions on the in the staff report, and we can get into taking a look at that.
Fred can kind of come up and talk some more about the additions, but I just wanted to, make sure that council is aware that what really before you is a very high-level document. This is really similar to kind of like our vision plan that we did. It's a very conceptual plan, and anything that is, in the plan will take additional steps to implement. So it's not like if this is adopted that we go out and do everything in the plan for lots of reasons. One is there's a lot of money that's in the plan, but it does give us the ability to go out and figure out how we're going to accomplish all those things. It's a 20-year plan, so as things come up, things will phase in over a long period of time. And most things will actually end up coming back to council for your consideration to move forward. With that, I think I'll probably let Fred, and we actually have our consultant here to talk about things as well, but Fred, do you want to kind of talk about some of the changes that we kind of did based on some comments we heard from the last meeting?
Yeah, and I'll actually let Matt talk about those just a little bit more, but basically based on the freight route discussion that we had last time, we added some language to that figure there on page 14 of the document, and then made the language on page 13 just reflect the fact that that was a preferred route, not necessarily mandating that all freight trucks or shipment go that way. Now, what the city manager had said is something that I just kind of, just sort of reflected on this as I was thinking about this meeting tonight. I mean, it's worth saying again, and perhaps I haven't said it enough. This is a 20-year plan. City is expected to grow, and we are, as part of this plan, trying to figure out how to address transportation in the future, right? We have needs now, but we also can kind of look out and anticipate what some of those needs are. And frankly, I mean, you'll remember one of the first presentations I gave on this was at the high school. And at that high school meeting, I put up a 1950s aerial, and I put up a 2017 aerial. And I said, look at this. The road networks haven't changed that much. We have grown a lot while the road networks have not changed all that much. And so, yes, we do have some things to sort of catch up on, but what this plan tries to do is both sort of figure out how to get some of the things that we know we're deficient in, like east-west connectivity, like north-south connectivity. We talk about things like that, but then we also try and pursue different means to try and achieve some of our goals relating to moving people through the community. That's why in the same presentation, I put up 10 cars, a picture of 10 cars. I put up a similar picture of 10 bikes. I put up a similar picture of 10 people. And I said, look, the amount of infrastructure that you have to invest in when you have 10 cars versus 10 bikes and 10 people is different. That's part of the reason why we have focused a lot on alternative modes here. Also, we have folks that are aging in the community. We have folks that are young in the community and wanting to travel around, wanting some sort of independence, right? We have folks, I see them in little motorized scooters riding on the side of Highway 51 in the bike lane. Stuff like that, as people are aging, people are going to be looking for other alternatives in transportation, things like a place to ride a scooter safely. That's what we're trying to achieve with this plan. And so while we do talk a lot about bike lanes and pedestrianism and all of this sort of stuff, a lot of it is just to try and create a transportation network that's suited for all ages and abilities, right? So when any one of us gets old, we can actually travel around this community safely. That's really what we're trying to do. It is very future focused, but at the same time, we're trying to address the problems that we see in the future, not with a silver bullet. I used to work with a lady, she said, I don't believe in silver bullets, I believe in silver buckshot. And that is what this plan is about. We're trying to address the problems that we know about through a variety of different means. And so that's why it looks the way it does. So with that, I'll have Matt just explain those changes in further detail.
Karen, can you bring up the document so we can see it on our screens? That's okay? Thank you. Forgot to charge my iPad.
Hello, Matt Bell with Kittleson and Associates, and I can't add too much more from what Fred just said. I think he covered it really well. One of the big takeaways from our last meeting was that there was some concerns about how we were presenting the freight and farm equipment routes, and the big change, even though it's more of just how this might be perceived by people, was to refer to the routes as preferred freight and farm equipment routes, and move away from referring to them as sort of designations. And then we also, so the map itself now says preferred freight and farm equipment routes. And the text that supports the map and the report itself, it says the same thing. We also added additional text in there to just identify that that developing these routes or identifying these routes doesn't necessarily restrict the use of any other routes within the community for freight and farm equipment. It's just simply stating a preference for the community for how they're moving these vehicles through. That's the biggest change, and yeah, I'm available if you have any other questions.
Questions for the staff at this point?
It's probably entirely conceivable that even if something's in this plan, circumstances could change, and we would abandon that thought and maybe move on to something else. We have that flexibility, right? Okay.
And based on reviews of your past TSP and 2 or 3 TSPs going back, it's pretty common.
So I had the opportunity to ride around in some tractors and combines through town this last week, and to get the perspective from farmers, because I was told that farmers had been spoken to and they want to use the Talmadge Road 16th Street. And so I said, is that true? Is that an alternative route that you'd like instead of going through downtown Independence? And they said, we don't want to use that route. You know, even if it's the preferred route, they don't want to use it. And I said, why don't you want to use that? And they said, because it's dangerous. And Karen, can you put up those pictures I sent? So what we're doing is we're telling people in big machinery to go down a road with no shoulders, that they need to watch traffic going down those roads with no shoulders, and they're scared to go down there. And so, and I went and I looked and I traveled down there and I looked, you get one tire off of that road, you're slipping down into a ditch. So we're asking people to do this, what you consider a preferred plan, which is actually dangerous for farm equipment. They will not go that way. And I'd just like to remind the council of Captain Thomas Howard Kistler, who worked for Polk County Fire District Number 1, who died en route to a hazardous material drill. He was riding an engine in the front seat of his car when he approached on Talmadge Road. When a car in the opposite direction approached, the right wheels of the engine left the paved surface of the road and dropped into the ditch. The driver of the engine was unable to steer the engine out of the ditch before crashing into a tree, hitting the front seat where Kistler was. It took firefighters an hour and a half to remove Kistler from the engine, where he was pronounced dead at the scene. Many of the firefighters, including Lori Albert, who used to work at Polk County Fire District Number 1, said it was a horrific way to go. And for her personally, she could not drive down Talmadge Road for 5 to 6 years. They said at his memorial service, dispatch to Captain Kistler was repeated 3 times before the dispatcher simply said, "No contact, dispatch is clear." So when we decide that we're going to make preferred routes and send our large trailers and combines down these routes, we need to actually go and talk to the farmers and get their perspectives on it. Because right now, this wouldn't be a preferred route for anybody unless we put shoulders on this road. Because what we're doing is we're asking for our farmers and our big trucks to go down a road that literally, if you look at the pictures, have 3 inches of clearance on either side. And then many areas go straight down into a ditch. It's very hazardous. And I would ask that this be removed totally from the plan as a preferred route for any big equipment or farm equipment to go down that road.
So just a point of clarification here. So this is a 20-year plan, and it would be reasonable to expect, would it, that different places are going to be upgraded along the way?
That is the idea, and the plan does include provisions for improvements along 16th and Talmadge, and the segments within the city limits. The segments within the outside the city limits or outside the city's urban growth boundary would be the responsibility of the county.
Exactly.
So this would be so if I recall correctly, a number of years ago, Highway 51 in the northern part of town was less. You know, we had ditches and things like that, but it was in our transportation plan, and it got upgraded to have a traffic lanes both directions, curb, gutter, sidewalks, and a turning lane, if I recall correctly, that because that was in our long-term plan, and so that was how we were able to get it. Does that sound does that remind you of that? Because I think did you work on that particular?
I didn't. I don't have that much history with the city, but that's pretty common.
Yeah, thank you. Are there additional questions for staff at this point? Okay, so what we'll do here, thank you, appreciate the staff. Council members, we have a second reading here. Is there anything that anybody else needs to say, or we can just get into making some decisions?
I would like to suggest an amendment to this document, that we omit the preferred route for trucks and tractors to go down that route.
So I hear a request.
I second that amendment.
Okay, we have an amendment being requested, and, all righty. Is there discussion about this?
I guess my only question would be, so what it sounds like we're saying is we're not mandating that they use the route, and we don't trust them to use their personal discretion to choose their preferred route.
I don't think this.
That if
One person,
ATV
please.
through town works best for them, then they're free to use that. If, for instance, they're headed out to Highway 99 and they choose to use that alternate route, then they're free to use that at their convenience and their discretion.
Okay,
That's what I'm hearing.
right. Councilor Roden, you wanted to speak next.
I'm just saying that we shouldn't have the preference of it being the preferred route when it is obviously a dangerous route.
Thank you. Is there other people who'd wish to speak to this?
I
Counselor-
do, I actually agree.
If I can go, I was
Okay.
recognize Counselor Morton, then I'll get you next, please.
Is there any reason that we could not put into the transportation master plan verbiage that says that upgrades are expected on these routes?
I think because it's county,
No.
we can't.
I'm going to ask us, Mr. Passamir, can you give some clarification on what is allowed and what is not allowed, please?
Well, I mean, I guess if we're going to make changes to the document, then we're probably going to need to go back and do a thorough review and make sure that all of those items are thought about. I guess I would respond to Councilor Burton is, if you take a look at the different collectors and arterials and everything else in here, those improvements are really identified throughout the document. We could add a note if we wanted, but I don't know if that would be, I'll leave it up to you to decide whether it's worth the time to go back and bring this back at a future date.
Counselor Job?
Is there a way to just say this is an alternate route instead of saying a preferred route so that it's not labeled that way?
I would have to talk to the state, but I would think so. Especially for the farm, the freight route might be a little bit different. We need to identify a freight route, I believe. But I guess that's what I'm talking about is if we make changes, we're going to want to make sure we go back and do it right so that there aren't any changes. But again, Matt would alternate to be a better word we could use. Yeah. So
That was going to be my suggestion. I would
right,
support
so-
alternate route.
So, Matt, can you go ahead and, because I think I got what it was. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess the question that I would ask, and then I can put this to rest for myself anyway, is these routes came from the idea that the trucks that are traveling through the community, that's from like Salem to Monmouth, that the preferred route for these folks would to not be go through downtown, to drive into downtown and try to make that right turn onto Monmouth Street. And same with people coming up from Corvallis Road, over from River Road, coming up through the downtown and trying to make that left onto Monmouth Street. And with that in mind, and with the arterial collector, just the larger transportation system in mind, we had identified these routes as the preferred routes. I'm using air quotes for people that can't see me. And essentially that was it. It wasn't intended to restrict anybody. It wasn't intended to like really establish these as a designated route system. It was just a state of preference. I would say that is largely done today through through more passive means by having things like curb extensions, on-street parking, sort of narrow curb radii within the downtown area is already a deterrent for a lot of these trucks. This is, again, just sort of establishing what the preferences is and hopefully communicating that out to the larger freight community so that they don't try to make those same movements.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Counselor Morton.
Is it possible, and I'm just throwing out some ideas here, to differentiate between farm equipment and freight? Because having had a couple of truck drivers in the family, I know that those are far more professional drivers that do it all the time than some of the farm workers are. And I'm happy also with the idea of an alternate route rather than a preferred route, if that makes it more palatable to the rest of the council.
And I apologize. To answer your first question directly, I'm comfortable with using the word alternative just as easy as preferred, and I think we even debated about whether or not we were going to go with one or the other.
Okay, so I'm going to look to staff for a second. If we went with changing the word from preferred to alternative, do you see that as a substantive, if that was the only change that we made, would that require reconfiguration and reevaluation through legal and all the things like that, if that was the only word that was changed?
I have a question too.
I'm looking to staff. for
Yeah,
a
I'm
moment.
gonna just take a second. Fred, I don't see an issue with that, do you? Matt, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
we're just changing one word.
If we are changing
can
one
change
word
it
that-
multiple places, and that would be easy to make a motion to just
But if,
Moment,
make that.
so that's what it is?
That word change, yes.
Okay, Counselor Roden.
if we change that word, are we still going to put signage up that's going to point people down the dangerous road? Is that part of this plan? Because right now, what I'm saying is we shouldn't even have that as a alternative route for trucks, even though you think that they should be able to prefer, that, you know, if they want to drive that way, I guess they can. I would like to think that the person driving the fire engine was a professional driver and knew what they were doing too, but accidents happen when there's no shoulder. So, and we're trying to change county roads as well. And I don't know where we are in the city where we're able to change what the county roads look like.
Counselor Martin Willis, I think you wanted to say something? Did I?
Well, I'm just gonna, I'm the wife of a professional driver, and those roads on some nights are an absolute dream for him, considering some of the roads that our professional drivers are literally forced to drive to get our goods to market on any given day. So when given the choice, they're generally familiar with those routes. They know what they're about to drive, and I would then trust those drivers to make that choice. And I would hope that within the fire department, they would be, since they are local, familiar enough with the area that if there is a safer alternative route that still gets them to their destination in a timely fashion, that a driver's discretion should come into play.
Well, we have a firefighter in the audience.
Counselor Takis?
Yeah, we have a firefighter right here, if we want a professional feedback on that.
I'm going to go to Counselor Takis, who had his hand up.
Yeah, one of the things we need to remember is one of the reasons we're looking to maybe lessen the traffic on Main Street, because it's not safe there either. There's a lot of pedestrians. It's very tight if you put a mower or something like that going through town, which sometimes you see 5 at a time going through here. So that's the other side of the coin. And I knew the driver, by the way, who was driving that. He was a friend of mine. But, you know, how many other wrecks have been there? You know, I think we need to balance that a little bit, the amount of traffic that's going down one road versus the other.
Well,
So I'm going to weigh in. I get a chance to speak too here, and then Counselor Roden, please. I think we have to remember this is a 20-year plan. We're not trying to do anything tomorrow or next week or next year. It's a long-term plan that says this is long-term. It might be better to go that way. It's not saying you have to, but it might say that you have. Counselor Roden, you had something to say.
I was just going to say, we did a disservice to our community when we put all the deterrents that you talked about in downtown Independence. It did make it more difficult for people to turn the corners and go down. And I know that we're looking at this as a 20-year plan, but we've really failed to address more of the traffic issues where we focused on pedestrian and bikes, where we really should have focused on how do we get people to where they need to go without hampering or adding so much more time to their commute to our local farmers and our businessmen, which reaches every socioeconomic class that we have in our community. And I just think it's to make this a alternate and preferred route, you know, let them choose. But to make it something that we're going to put up signage and have people go this way instead of that is I feel, putting the city of Independence in a precarious spot.
Yeah, and I want to weigh on that again, because I've mentioned this at least a couple times in the past, is just because we adopt this plan does not mean the signs are going up tomorrow on this or, quite frankly, anything else in this document. If we're impacting the public right of way, whether, you know, we had a long conversation on parking here not too long ago regarding the right of way, it's going to be an ordinance that comes back to council that's going to be time appropriate. So 1, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I can't tell you when, you know, we're going to cross that road where we want to come back and designate that, but there will be, at that point in time, a well thought out plan. There will be a staff report, an ordinance, and everything that would need to be put in place to make sure that at the appropriate time that was done. So just by adopting this document, signs don't go up tomorrow on this issue or really any other issue. It's a high-level planning document that allows us to go out and figure out how we're going to do it appropriately over a period of time.
Okay, I don't think
Mayor?
we're, please.
I just want to say that I disagree that we didn't take into consideration moving traffic around. That was probably the major part of the talks. There were a lot of experts there. There were a lot of people from the community. We had open houses, virtual open houses, but there was a lot of discussion about that. So we can't change the past, at least not without spending an enormous amount of money. So we have to work with what we have. And I think this is a reasonable plan. I don't like a lot of things in it, but I couldn't come up with a better solution in a lot of those situations. And it's a plan. Things change, technology changes, conditions change. It's it's a strategy, but we're going to be changing as we go forward. So
It's a plan, not a directive.
that's right.
Councillor Morton, what I'm going to try to do here is get to a decision point pretty quickly. Councillor Morton, briefly.
Okay, I also wanted to point out that in our 2020 vision plan and the vision planning that was done prior to that, the people that had input into that, which was, as you say, a wide number of people, wanted the focus on pedestrian usage of downtown. And we do see that there is a very high pedestrian usage, and the thing that we're facing right now is the additional traffic that will be coming through downtown because of our growth. I've been here since 1990, and the town has expanded by 250%, which is a significant amount. And I wanted to ask, do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes,
or
I
not?
was going to go that. So here's what we're going to do. We have a motion to remove, and Karen, tell me if I'm doing this correctly, to remove the freight and agricultural portion of the plan. Is that a fair characterization?
It was too, sorry.
Councilor Roden, was that a fair characterization of the plan?
And Mayor, I will say, if that is the motion, then staff would like to have time to modify the document, if that motion passes.
Right, okay. So we have a motion, we've had a second, we've had discussion. All in favor of the motion, which is to remove the agricultural and freight section of the plan, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's Roden and Job, yes. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
And I see 4 noes. Motion fails. Now, council members, there was discussion about making a one-word change to the document, and the word was going to be from, help me please?
Preferred to alternate.
Preferred to alternate. Is there agreement that that's okay? That is?
Do you want a motion on that?
I'm going to see if there's consensus. Is there consensus? Is there any objection? There's no objection, so what we're going to do is we will make that one-word change, okay? So we are now into the second reading, and Karen, I think, okay, no, so I have to have a motion, excuse me, my error. And
Thanks.
yes, please.
We do have to have Fred or Matt actually read the language so that we know exactly what the language is going to be stated before you make your motion. You need to be able to say, this is the language that is being changed and this is what it looks like. So if you can find it, I believe Matt said it was on page 13. I don't know if it was in any other places. And the map was on page 4.
Underneath those bulleted points, it says Figure 3 illustrates the preferred freight and farm equipment routes.
So
Yeah, I think, Karen, I know where you're going, and you're based on advice from our city attorney, but I think if there was a motion that basically just would say that for all freight and farm equipment routes, changing the language from preferred to alternative would be sufficient direction for that to be noted in the record so that everybody.
That would be clear.
can see that.
May I so move?
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Discussion? Karen, you're good now? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to move on to page 10, and we have multiple motions that we have to make here. So I need to have somebody read motion number 1, please.
Can you put up page 10, Karen?
Here. I've got it, Karen.
Okay, that's what I thought it was.
Okay.
We just have the one motion, don't we? Or
No,
are
we have-
gonna do
we'll
the
have- we
third
have two.
also? Okay.
Go
I move to read the proposed ordinance, Council Bill 2021-07, for the second time by title only.
Second.
I have motion second, discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion
Aye.
carries. Oh, excuse me.
I opposed.
I have Roden in opposition. Motion carries.
An ordinance amending the Independence Comprehensive Plan and Development Code, adopting the Transportation System Plan.
Okay, the second motion, please.
I move to adopt the proposed ordinance, Council Bill number 2021-07.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second by Core. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
Opposed.
Roden is opposition. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
The bill is passed and will be assigned to ordinance number 1591.
May I make one follow-up comment?
Please.
There is no reason why when signage is put up that the signage cannot say alternative freight route or alternative route rather than preferred.
With an asterisk that says there's no shoulder.
Thank you. I would like to remind everybody that it is the most efficient way to move things through council is if staff know in advance what's coming up and what the proposal is so that they can be fully prepared to give their best professional advice, and I think that helps. So let's move on to new business, comprehensive financial policies. Ms. Butch, good evening and welcome. And I'm so glad to hear that your hometown is still standing in the
Still
wake
standing.
in the wake of the fires in California.
Not much left around it, but it's still standing.
Well, we're pulling for you in your home community. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So back in 2015, the council adopted the comprehensive financial policies, and then we did some internal policies. So when I brought this to the council back in 2015, it was a huge document, and it had everything. And so we kind of, between the council and staff, we pared it down to the most essential things that are important to council. And then the stuff that we took out, we adopted internally for staff to take care of all of those little things that we think about along the way that we needed to be guided by. So this is, this before you today is just to update those. I gave you the red line version, and mostly it's just some verbiage changes. There's no substantial changes to the policies. And if you want some time to work through these and talk about them, I'm prepared to do that. Or if you're comfortable with them, we can adopt them tonight. And however you would like to go.
Questions for the presenter? And I wanted to just say thank you. I appreciated the red lines, and I didn't see, as you said, I didn't see substantive. I saw word adjustments and things like that. If everybody's okay, we can dispense with this quickly. Somebody would like to make a motion.
I move to adopt Resolution 21-1557, adopting revised comprehensive financial policies.
A motion?
Second?
A second. Is there discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
that. Thank you. Mr. Evander, I understand, is going to be carrying the authorization grant for a housing needs analysis. Mr. Evander, good evening again.
Hi there, thank you very much. So what this is about here is, recently in 2019, the state passed House Bill 2003. And that House bill requires communities over 10,000 people in size to prepare a housing needs analysis every 8 years and then a housing production strategy. As part of this year's grants and everything, and sort of us looking at our population growth nearing 10,000 people, the state has reached out to communities less than 10,000 people in size and said, hey, you have a potential to tap into some grant funds to prepare either a housing needs analysis or a housing production strategy. We think that given the fact that we are nearing that 10,000 population, we're at like 9,800 according to the ACS, the last American Community Survey. It's quite likely that we're going to hit it soon. Once we hit it, we'll have 2 years to update this plan, and then we'll be on that cycle. So based on all of that, we thought, shoot, we might as well throw in a grant request to potentially get this funding for housing needs analysis to start us down that road. The last housing needs analysis that the community did was in 2009. So it's been quite a while. Things have changed a little bit. So it wouldn't hurt to go back and relook at the analysis. Also, this is something that was brought out fairly strongly in the Vision 2040 plan, was a housing strategy. This would help us sort of lay the groundwork, understanding what our needs are right now and helping us sort of think about that stuff. So this resolution would acknowledge that we want to submit this grant request, and hopefully we can get it. Are there any questions about that?
Councilor Coeur.
I have two questions, Fred. If we get the grant, how soon could this process be completed? And secondly, if we don't get the grant, is this budgeted?
So the answer to the second question is right now we do not have a budget for this. This is something that we've sort of been looking, at least I have, looking at that 10,000 population and just kind of recognizing we have a couple of years, but with the funding being available and us being eligible, it seems like this is an opportune time. The first question was what again?
If it gets awarded, how soon could this process be done?
What we submit a work program for this process. We put in, we haven't put in the grant yet, but tentatively, the work program that we have is 9 months. We could make that shorter if need be, but that's essentially what we thought was reasonable given some of the work that needs to be done. There's sort of looking at buildable lands. There's doing some stuff related to housing analysis, looking at the code and stuff like that, just to make sure that everything is making sense. So that's why we chose that time frame.
I ask because the Rural Homeless Committee is looking for this kind of information.
Oh.
Additional questions? Okay, appreciate the information. It's something we're going to have to do. It seems like there's an opportunity to get some resources to do this. If anybody would like to suggest action, I would appreciate that.
Yes, I would, and I'd also like to say that affordable and appropriate housing is also one of the goals that this council set.
That's right.
So I move to approve Resolution 21-1558, authorizing city staff to apply for a housing planning assistance grant from the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development.
I second.
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Coeur. Is there further discussion?
Roden.
Roden?
It's okay, she can have it.
Either way, okay. Everybody's happy? I said Coeur, so yeah, that's fine. Yay. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. General announcements. Counselor announcements?
I do. I served in the United States Navy for 10 years, and I've been speaking to some combat veterans, which I was never a combat veteran. I want to make that clear. But I just want to remind everybody to do a buddy check and reach out. And there's too many veterans hurting themselves, and this past few weeks has brought a lot of that tension up to the surface again. And I just want to remind every veteran out there that's listening that you are not alone and that we support you. And the Veterans Crisis Line is 1-800-273-8255. Press 1 if you know a veteran. Reach out and just check on them, especially if they're a combat veteran.
Would you give that phone number again, please?
Yes, it is 1-800-273-8255. Press 1 and someone will help you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Morton?
Publish it.
You
Yes.
have an announcement?
I did. We have Independence Hop and Heritage Block Party coming up on the 18th of September, and the Ghost Walk coming up on the 2nd of October, and both events will, I believe, lend themselves just fine to having it be an in-mask event, especially the Ghost Walk. Our Councilor Takis was saying we could just draw funny pictures on the mask. But that is, I appreciate the volunteers the volunteer offers I've gotten from the council to help with that second event. And also wanted to let you know that the monthly publication put out through the Chamber of Commerce, 2C1C, which stands for Two Cities, One Community, is at its 10th year of publication. And as always, business advertising for local businesses is free.
Thank you, Counselor. Others?
Quick reminder, it is Fiesta weekend coming up upon us, so head down to the park. There will be amazing music and food, and of course, please mask and distance appropriately while you're having all that fun.
Great. Okay, somebody say the magic word, please.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.
Oh, did you have?